Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has burst onto the scene, getting practically universal praise from critics, showing a massive improvement in reception from its first installment. This has sparked the game to sell over 1 million copies in its first 24 hours, with one of those sales being yours truly, a first-time participant in the Kingdom Come universe. And after countless hours of adventuring, praying, and getting wasted on savior snobs, some important questions need to be addressed. Is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 worth the hype? Does it separate itself in the RPG genre? This is Frank from Marsman Gaming, and in this video I will give you the good, the bad, and answer these questions in my final verdict. Let's dive into it. First, let's talk about the good. And the stars of the show for this game is the design of its open world and the freedoms the devs give you via its RPG systems to shape your own adventure. Now I'll address some things in these systems that pissed me off, but for the most part, the open world and its RPG elements can be pretty astonishing. Let's start with the open world. And it's pretty massive. This game takes place in the medieval Bohemian age, and there is 2 regions for which you traverse, one being Trotsky, where it is mostly in the wilderness, filled with settlements throughout, and Kuttenberg, which is like a city. Throughout both regions, I am thoroughly impressed with the environments and structures that really capture the medieval vibe. The game has 32 main missions that take about 40 to 50 hours to beat, with an additional 39 side missions and a boatload of tasks and games like hunting, dice, alchemy, and more that give you a lot to do here. A bunch of these missions usually have multi-step objectives that have you traverse multiple points of interest in the region, and also give you different ways that you can complete or fail at them depending on the choices you make or your playstyle. What makes things unique for this game in this genre is that a bunch of these missions are time dependent or dependent on where you have progressed in the story. Not to say this hasn't been done before, but the consistency and the amount that they do in this game is definitely unique. For example, an NPC can tell you about an issue they are having and will need you to meet at a certain location at a certain time, and if you don't show, that mission will fail, and the NPC will let you know that you didn't show, hurting your reputation. Or you will need to make tough decisions between 2 different groups or parties on completing a mission a certain way, which will increase your reputation with one party over the other, or affect your interactions or past in the future of the game. We usually see RPG games give you missions that you can store in the backlog and get to it when it's convenient to you, or have mission results that don't really impact things from an interactive or narrative standpoint as the game goes on. But this game really makes you think and prioritize what missions you want to get done and what path you should take. These aspects kind of remind me of The Witcher 3, for which I love, and not enough RPG games do this consistently. You will come across various NPCs traveling throughout the region, such as traders, bandits, soldiers, drunks, and more, that can spark a side mission, or you can see someone have a cool armor that you want. Heck, you can go steal it, or you can fight for it, or hell, maybe you get stopped and people try to jump you. Another example I can give is I was traveling on the road and came across some NPC reading a treasure map. I stopped and talked to this NPC and I said I would help him find it. He gave me the map, and as I was reading it, he thought I was taking too long and my intentions were to steal the map for myself. So he tried to kill me, and thus I fought back and killed him. You can run into these types of situations quite often. Heck, you can be an absolute asshole in this game and steal items, kill people, but run the risk of having to go to jail, be whipped, pay fines, or go on a religious atonement through prayer to get back in good graces with society. To be quite honest, I didn't think the main story was anything special, and the characters overall were not too memorable, but the world they created feels alive, and the choices they give you entices you to explore, which is really what you want in an open world game. The next thing I want to talk about is the RPG elements or systems of this game, which has a lot of depth and variety that complements its world, but honestly at times could really be overwhelming. You have your standard leveling up of your character with skill points and experience. The armors you have certain attributes. You have to monitor how hungry you are or how tired you are, your health bar, your weight capacity. I mean, we have seen these kind of things in other RPGs before, but what this game does is take another step up, and you also have to maintain the quality of your weapons that can possibly break, the quality of your food, the quality of the herbs you pick, and potential ailments your character has to deal with. You can get sick, you can have damaged body parts, heck, you can even overeat. Yes, there is an overeating ailment. like you just left the Thanksgiving dinner table. You also have to make sure you're cleaned up from battles, or NPCs will never shut up about how bloody you look, or if you start to smell, it can actually hurt you in stealth scenarios because you'll be identified. Also, leveling up your player and the armor you wear doesn't just affect your attack or HP or capacity, but also upgrading your personality traits. These can drastically affect the different dialogue options that you have that can help or hurt you on side missions or get you out of trouble. This then leads to the reputation system. The actions you take throughout the game can affect what your reputation with the characters you interact with. This system is very important as some NPCs will treat you worse or better depending on your reputation within the settlement. The reputation also varies from settlement to settlement, so you can be loved in one place and hated somewhere else. These systems are cool, but I've seen at times where it feels like they are conflicting with themselves and don't make a ton of sense, especially in early game. I'll give an example. Without spoiling too much, early in the game, you get hurt and a woman helps you in the forest and gave you a bed to use. I did some work for her, always boosting my rep with her, and I came back to her home at one point to help her with a mission and decided I needed to sleep. So when I went to go use the same bed she offered me before, this old hag suffered the weirdest form of amnesia and completely forgot I'd been helping her this whole time. She then accused me of trespassing and wanted to report me to the authorities. I was given a couple dialogue options to use my personality traits, but when my first one failed, I re-uploaded the game to see which one was the right answer, but none of them worked. I needed to pay her or get arrested.
All right. Oh, all right. Okay. All right. You fucking good. God damn it!
Some of these moments don't really add up. My favorite part of the RPG options that they give is the ability to have multiple builds that you can easily change to, depending on your situation. They give you 3 presets that you can set with different armors and weapons that come really handy, whether you need a more heavy attack build to fight enemies, or if you need to be a little bit more nimble and stealthy, or if you need specific armor that boosts your charisma to talk to NPCs. I think this convenient builds that you can put together entices you to try out and use different playstyles to be strategic. There is a ton of RPG elements in this game that can be pretty immersive, especially for RPG fans like myself. But if you take a step back and take off those rose-colored glasses and look for the casual gamer, or maybe someone new to this genre of game, it could definitely be a bit overwhelming and a significant learning curve if we're being honest. What is your favorite part of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, if you like this kind of content, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe button for future content. And now, back to the video. With the good, we gotta talk about the bad. And as much as I think the world building and RPG elements overall are strong, what let me down was the combat of the game. If you haven't played the game yet, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is a first-person dual battle system like Dishonored, or a more recent game I reviewed in Indiana Jones. The combat is slower, more methodical, where the focus is on striking, blocking, or parrying, and counter-strikes. You can have one-on-one confrontations or confrontation with groups of enemies. Now these kind of systems can get pretty repetitive. This game adds a nice little wrinkle to where you can target a certain region of your enemy, from his head to the right side of his body to the left side of his body and his leg. You also have combos and master strikes you can learn as you progress to the game. To me, that's all good, but the reason it's on my bad list is the lack of consistency of the hitboxes and confrontations in general outside of one-on-one combat. There has been a bunch of times in my playthrough that you close the gap with your enemy, you have the region lined up with your weapon, and your character just straight up misses. Or it looks like you hit your target, but your weapon just strikes on air. Or you might just be morphing into your enemy and it doesn't register. You see these incidents even more when fighting animal enemies like wolves, where honestly I had given up trying to go on the offensive and just waited for them to strike so I can parry into a counter to deal damage. I mean, even when I'm locked on and have a longsword, it can still be a complete pain. You also see these hitbox issues fighting enemies on slopes, hills, and terrain that has obstacles. If your character is slightly below or angled above the enemy when swinging, you'll be swinging at air half the time, like Henry has suffered major brain damage. Then there is fighting groups of enemies. I do like how they made the enemy AI smart. While they will charge you or attack at different angles, it's not just one enemy at a time trying to fight you. And to focus on your enemies, your character needs to be looking at them. Now I played this game on console, so that means you need to use your analog to toggle your view to lock on different enemies. And it's just too stiff, and it feels like I need to slam my analog stick just to get Henry to cover his right flank. The combat at times really puts a damper on my experience. The weapon variation isn't bad either, but I didn't have a lot of fun using weapons outside the single hand sword or a great axe. The pole arms kinda suck. Next thing I want to talk about is the pacing of the game, particularly the early game. This game is big, as I mentioned earlier, and has a ton of cutscenes and dialogues that add up to close to 20 hours of the main content of the game. For context, other big games over the years that were described to have a ton of cutscenes and dialogue, like The Witcher 3 has 13 hours of cutscene, Metal Gear Solid 5 has 9 hours, Metal Gear Solid 4 has 9 hours, heck, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, who had a boatload of these kind of cutscenes, totaled 16 hours. This game trumps all of that significantly. Now, having a ton of cutscenes and dialogue doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. Baldur's Gate 3 had 20 hours of cutscene, and Final Fantasy 16 also had 20 hours. But the issue I had in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is this quote-unquote slow burn to get things going into the game. At the start, the game goes through tutorials and cutscenes to introduce you to the various systems and characters that they have, which I get. The world doesn't really open up and give in your freedom until Chapter 5, called Wedding Crashers. But man, there is practically 2 hours worth of cutscenes before you reach that open world. I have seen people who have compared this quote-unquote slow burn to The Witcher 3. But to be honest, The Witcher 3 got me into the Witcher series, and I connected more with the story and characters than I did here, which is probably why it made this slow burn not feel as bad. And for this slow burn, feels like it was cooking with a single match. Also, when you do get that freedom, your character stinks, and this world is unforgiving. So I definitely recommend you having to grind for some money, a bed, and armor to survive this punishing world. You'll thank me later. To wrap up this section, I also wanted to address the performance about the game. I'm not going to get too deep into the technical stuff, but as I mentioned before, I did my playthrough on console, specifically the Xbox Series X, and it's a bit rough around the edges. I didn't have any crashes through my playthrough, but the performance mode definitely needs some work. You will see pop-ins quite a bit, and that is not uncommon in a large open world game, but you will see at times flashing lights during cutscenes, like you were just hit with a flash thunderstorm, and when the scene ends, it's sunny. At times, you'll see a little bit of screen tearing and some rendering issues throughout. Now, it didn't completely break my immersion, but happened frequently enough for me to point it out. And the cutscenes, they can be pretty hilarious at times. In the early game, you will go through a lot of dialogue and the camera would flip to different people's perspectives, even when they aren't talking. And sometimes you'll have cutscenes where a random NPC will join in and stand there, cutting off your view from the person talking, or just morph into another NPC. Performance overall was okay, but wanted to make those notes for full transparency. Overall, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 had positives and negatives. The world that the devs built and the choices and freedom they give you to have your own adventure gives an immersive experience with RPG elements that have depth and variety that distinguish itself in this genre. However, the combat is pretty inconsistent with it hitboxes and registration, a pain to toggle through group attacks, and a performance on console that is a little rough around the edges. I'm giving Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 an 8.3 out of 10 and a Marsman Gaming stamp of approval. This game did not reach the levels of hype for me that I was expecting and didn't connect as deeply with this game as I have with some of my other favorite RPGs. I believe many hardcore RPG fans will have a blast with this game as the foundation is very strong, but I fear for the casual fan may get a little bit overwhelmed and frustrated with its complex systems and flaws that some have overlooked. Thank you everyone for watching. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe to support the channel. Also hit that bell button to get notified for future videos and check out our latest videos in the end screen. This is Frank from Marsman Gaming signing off. Game on.